Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. So today I'm going to talk about how to go about figuring out ideas for writing poetry and how to develop these ideas. Now, an idea can strike you anywhere. It can strike you as you're walking on the middle of a road, in the rain, with or without an umbrella. It can even strike you in the most unpoetic of circumstances and situations. For example, let's say when you're waiting at the bus stop for the bus to arrive in the sweltering heat, and the last thing on your mind is poetry. An idea can hit you even while you're doing grocery shopping in a supermarket, or when you're trying out new outfits in a clothing store in a shopping mall. And it's not quite possible to actually start writing poetry at all these places, right? It's not really practically possible to immediately get out a pen and paper at all sorts of places and start writing. So then, the next step is to store that idea somewhere in the back of your head, in the back of your consciousness, and then retrieve it at the right point of time when you can actually get somewhere comfortable where you can pick a pen and paper and then actually start writing and translate your idea into poetry. But it's not as simple as it sounds, because sometimes an idea can strike you with such a great degree of intensity, with such a great degree of urgency, that you have the urge to get it all out at once. And you really have the urge to immediately sort of get that idea out. That idea is so clear cut in your head that you want to translate that idea into a poem as soon as possible. If that's how it happens, well and good. But then it doesn't happen like that all the time. There are times when you will get an idea, but that idea will be sort of half-baked, and that level of conviction won't be there. So you'll be like, okay, yes, maybe, it seems interesting. I can probably write a poem on this topic, but you're still pretty vague about it. In other words, the raw material for the idea exists, but the idea hasn't yet taken a very concrete shape and form, a tangible shape and form. The idea is not compelling enough for you to write poetry on it. So, in that case, you let the idea sit in your head and let it develop. This process might take a couple of days, a couple of months, even a couple of years. Or in the worst possible scenario, that idea might just die a natural death. And you might never write a poem based on that particular idea. That is fine as well. Because remember, as creative people, our heads are like minefields of ideas. Every day, even as we are going through our daily routines, our mundane course, ideas come and go. And most of them, in fact, a majority of them just die a natural death. It is just few which stay. And it is these few ideas that form the raw material for poetry, sometimes over a long period of time. Let me explain this through an example. So let's assume you're a working professional living in a metropolitan city like Delhi, and every day you commute for work through your personal vehicle, let's say a car. So every day as you drive your car in order to reach work, you pass a particular traffic junction, you pass these traffic lights, and at these particular traffic lights, every day you see a bunch of street children begging. You see a bunch of street beggars there literally every day. And it's a gut-wrenching sight. It's a sight that can melt your heart. A sight of children at street corners, dressed in rags with malnutrition faces, begging when they should have actually been going to school, when they should have been laughing, smiling, dancing, hugging their parents. The sight of these impoverished and malnutrition children at street corners, when they should have been going to birthday parties with their parents. The sight of these children looking hungry for food when they should have been going shopping with their parents. So it's a heart-wrenching sight, a gut-wrenching sight. And it's not like you don't feel sad at the sight of these children. You feel sad, you feel uncomfortable. The sight moves you. You probably feel their pain. But it only happens for a certain point of time. And when your car moves up from the junction and you proceed towards your workplace, all that goes away and you forget about it. Till the next day, the same thing happens and the cycle goes on and goes on and on. It's possible that you do want to write on that particular subject, but you don't quite know on how to go writing a poem about it. So this goes on and on for a couple of months. Till one fine day, you pass the same traffic junction, the same traffic lights, but this time you actually have this urge to strike a conversation with the street children, who are begging at the street corners. And you end up talking to them. You ask them basic questions like, why are they begging? Why aren't they going to school? Who their parents are? Why aren't their parents sending them to school? How much money they are able to earn in a day? And all those questions. Now, the content of your conversation doesn't matter here. What matters here is the fact that that particular day, you broke the barrier between yourself and those street children. You used to see them every day till now. You have been seeing them for the past couple of months, but you were just moving past. You never really had this urge to strike a conversation with them. But that day changed it all. You talked to them, got further involved in their life, felt their pain even more deeply. And that day, when you got back home from your workplace, you actually just sat on your desk and started writing immediately. And you wrote a poem or a couple of poems. Now, what was the content of a poem exactly again depends on your personality and writing style. It's possible that the poem wasn't related to those street children at all. Maybe it was a poem about poverty. Maybe it was a poem talking about the social evil of child labor. Or maybe it was a poem just criticizing the societal apathy towards poor people, poor children. But what really matters is that that idea was there in your head for the past couple of months. It was building up, the momentum was building up, but you needed that exact stimulus, you needed that exact push for that idea to translate into a poem. And that particular day, your conversation with the street children who were begging at the traffic junctions, that conversation provided you that impetus. It provided you that particular stimulus to actually write poetry. Now let's talk about more personal subjects for poetry writing. Love, for example. So all of us have written love poetry at some point of time. A lot of us write only love poems when we have started writing poetry. So how do you exactly go about writing love poetry? Is it really as simple as you just deciding that, okay, I'm going to write like 5 or 10 love poems, and you just sit on your desk or on your laptop and start writing? No, of course, it doesn't work like that. Love is a very big universal concept. Now that you have come to the conclusion that you want to write love poetry, you have to write love poetry. Now the real work begins. You have to think about the idea, develop that idea. You have to think deeply about the subject of love, engage with the universal concept of love. Perhaps connect it with your own emotions, your own personal journey, personal experiences, relationships, and all that. And it's when you've figured out love within the matrix of your own personal journey, personal experiences, and all that, that the idea has actually developed, it has become ripe, and now you can start writing love poetry. But then again, there are two kinds of poets. You might be the kind of poet who writes poetry reflecting the tangible experiences. Your poetry might be more direct. It might be directly talking about your life's experiences, incorporating those. But then you also might be the other kind of poet, one who takes a detour, one who doesn't talk directly about their life experiences, but rather uses imagination to reinterpret them. So in that case, you might be writing love poetry that, for example, explores the concept of love in Bollywood movies or Bollywood songs. Or maybe you make up an imaginary love story that depicts your idealized conception of love. Or maybe you're fascinated by the dark side of love, by the topsy-turvy world of emotions, the helter-skelter ride of emotions as such. So in that case, you might then construct a fable complete with characters that shows the dark and negative side of love. So the point is, there are many universal themes, subjects on which you can write poetry. Love, hatred, belonging, happiness, jubilation, ecstasy, pain, loneliness, reflections of society, culture, politics, so on and so forth. But the point here is that these subjects by themselves do not constitute ideas for writing poetry. Once you have thought about a particular subject or you're attracted to a particular subject for writing poetry, now the real work begins. It's only when you have placed the subject within the framework of your personal and social life, within the framework of your personal and social history, and within your imaginatory frameworks, applied imagination to this subject, that the real idea for writing poetry then comes forth. It is only after that process of engagement with the subject through your own personal and social histories, only after that the subject can then translate into an idea. And then based on that particular idea, after letting that idea further develop, you can now write poetry. So this is the kind of topic where we can talk a lot about this, just go on and on, but I think that will be both intimidating and boring. So this is it for today. Thank you for listening to my video, and please do remember to like the video, and please do remember to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you very much.